Christine. Thank you so much for being here today, for accepting the invitation to be part of this series. You are one of those academics who have had a very, I would say, remarkable career. You have been all over. You have done a lot of things. You are involved in all kind of different projects. So I guess the first thing that I'm going to ask you is, can you give us a little bit of a summary, if it's possible, of your career, a little bit of where you have been, what you have done?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It is really a great pleasure to be able to share with you my background. I couldn't talk about where I am today without talking about where I come from. To start, I am born in Africa from what they will call today a big family. I have 10 brothers and sisters. So as a little girl, I live in a house where at home we speak two dialects. And then at school, we speak French and English because Cameroon is French and English colony. So we have those two languages. So you grow up speaking at least four languages. While I was doing my study in France, I realized that there was architecture in my culture that I had missed, that I didn't look at because it was adobe architecture, it was bamboo architecture. And of course, bamboo was looked at by those people who didn't understand my culture as the material for poor people, right? Today, bamboo is the most sustainable material. So I left all of that. I left all of that running to actually look at the greatness of concrete and everything else. And through my career, through my education in France, I realized that there were no structural classes that was talking about bamboo, and I realized that in my village, all of the houses are made in bamboo, like the whole community is made of bamboo. They have bamboo ceiling, and it's made very well, by people who understand it, but it's not in a book and we cannot talk about it. So don't tell me bamboo is not a material when I know where I come from. It's basically what we use, and we use it for scaffolding for 100 years, So that's when I start questioning if really I was following the right education, right? And I decided to do a PhD in geospatial and architecture because I really wanted to combine environment and geospatial. And the second I started doing geospatial, remember what came into my mind? My grandmother. All of those concepts are concepts that my grandmother did use. She didn't call it geospatial then. She called it just basic way of living with nature. But today we're calling it geospatial, geodesign, all of those big words that our grandmother have been living like that for years, and we just haven't, gotten there. But one thing that I realized though is that the only thing that my grandmother didn't have was the analytics, like the intelligence, the advanced intelligence that will, for example, give her a suitability study of the soil where she will understand exactly where to plant to get the most of the most crop. Those are the things that she didn't know. Well, she had that knowledge, we wouldn't actually be talking about geospatial today because we are reinventing the wheel.
So currently you are a professor, but you also have all these different entrepreneurial projects that you have done, several of them, right? How did you manage that? Because I tell you something, when I talk to some clients, some academics, people come to me and said, okay, I have 4 or 5 different ideas that I want to do for an entrepreneurial project or a side hustle, and I just don't know which direction to take. Do I start with this, or do I go for this one, or I want to do this other one? So, but you have been able to do different things. So I was wondering if this was ever a challenge because you have all these different ideas.
That is a question that everybody asks me, how do you do all of those things? Because I'm always working on many projects. Right now, I have like 5 totally different, from a restaurant to a geospatial, a community development to a workshop that I'm working on, and to a real project, and basically teaching as well. So how do I do that? Let me tell you one thing. I believe that as human, we are all born architect, engineer, doctor. We born all of that.
If I understand you correctly, you're saying, so one of the issues that we have is that we want to have a linear way. We want to have just one clear path, but that doesn't happen in life. Life is, it's convoluted, right? And then, and that's normal, and that's fine. Just go for, and you are going to find your path, and you're going to be able to connect things and probably make a decision. Is that a good interpretation?
It is at the same time, but you cannot do it alone because the world, humans are not meant to do things alone. There's no way we can. You can only push the idea so far. What I have done is professors have like this unique position to use 20 brain for 6 months and have them bring idea. Like I said, 𝐬𝐻 evolved from me giving an assignment to the student, having them push it out and seeing how they came up with different ideas. There's no such a path. In my classes, I don't have grading criteria because grading criteria limit what they could do. You want them to explode. I believe that we should focus on the difference. What we have in common is a given. What is different, it's what, like in Cameroon, in my life, where I suppressed my difference because I was so pushed into what was common, our commonality, and I was never happy because that thing stay in you. While if that difference will have come out, it will have hit somebody else's difference, and the meeting of the two will have created something else that somebody else will have taken. It is our difference that propels us out. So was GeoGen, which was just a data generator, because I saw how much students could generate data, and I was like, oh, we could have a company like that. And what I did is I hired those students, and they are actually willing to work, and we develop project and work on project, and they made a lot, because you want to make sure that whoever bring the idea, you hire them to start that company with you, and they want that. And that's basically the same as human. You want to be celebrated. So if you bring an idea as different as it is, make sure that they recognize that they are being recognized for that. Let's push it forward. And
that's excellent. So you are involving, so the students participate in your class, take the classes, you give them the freedom to work on a certain project, no limits, you go for, and you have all the freedoms. And then if some good idea come from that generated your entrepreneurial venture, and you involve those students who were participants in the creation of the idea, so they also benefit from that. That's fantastic. That's a good process. That's a very that involves everybody. That involves them.
In fact, a couple of my students, 4 of my students have been to international conferences. They have journal with me, because if you have a great idea, let's write about it. Let's send it to Italy, and let's go in Italy and present in Italy. We present in Toronto. We did it in India. We did it in London. And all of those are students who get idea, and I support them as a facilitator. I look at myself not as a professor, because I'm not professing anything. That student know things that I could never know. But as a coach, I look at myself like a football coach, right? Like basically an overweight football coach who cannot run 100 meters, seriously. But who has the skill to understand who is put with who to win the game.
So any football match or a football game, as is in life, when you start a project like this, you're going to find challenges, right? There's going to be challenges, some setbacks. So what about those? What have been the challenges that you have found? And I'm interested to hear if your approach of doing this, giving freedom and allowing the students to participate in that, is there any challenge also that came from your department, from your colleagues, from people around?
Well, it's very interesting that you asked that. I think the way I have approached things has been so unique that it has always been supported. Because at the end of the day, think about this, the students are doing a project for a whole semester. They're getting no recognition for it. So a student come up with an idea. You say, wow, this is good for a conference because I know all of the I say, let's write about this. The student get paid to go to conference. The student get recognized in journal. The school get recognized in journal. They say the school is doing things with those students. Student get in journal. It's good for everybody. Everybody is happy. Usually I'm not even called on. I'm called as a support, this is the but the students are highlight and they love that and they're using that in their resume and they're getting recognized. Some of my students have actually shifted the way they thought about design and wanted to do something that they were better at because I've given them that room of freedom. We have to fail. We do have to fail. I don't count my success. I don't count my failure, but for each success, there are at least 10 failure behind it.
So you are one of those people who I personally myself count one of those who believe that we learn from our failures. The failures are there for learning, right? So when you see academics who wants to start a project and they have 4 or 5 different ideas, and your advice would be just go for, and it's okay if you have setbacks. It's okay if it doesn't work because you are going to learn and you have to try to anyway, right?
And I believe that the biggest mistake we make all the time is think we could focus on one thing. I think no, there's no way you could actually. I always have 3 things in the back of my mind. Those ideas, and I have found out that sometimes 3 different ideas come together to make one. 2 might fail, but those failed projects have helped me actually get tools for the next one that works, because I think the world is connected. We live in a system. So for somebody to tell me, oh, you could do this or that, really make no sense. Just like what? I don't believe that education is separate from entrepreneurship. In fact, education, entrepreneurship, population, and city are all connected. Think about education as the seed that you put in the ground, right? And then think at entrepreneurship as the tree that come true, and the fruit is what nourish the people. It's all circled together. One doesn't work without the other, because if you plant a seed and the tree comes out and nobody's eating the seed, there's no point. It's going to die, right?
You don't have a background in business, right? Like per se, you haven't done any in business, but you are running businesses, right? You're running projects. So one question that academics will have, those who are not in business, will be, okay, I have never done any business, project or taking courses. So do I need to do that? Should that be something that would prevent people? Is that a requirement, you think? Do we have skills as academics that can help us?
I'm going to tell you one thing. I think that came from the fear and the societal profile of who we are and where we are going. I think that if you look at your origin as a person, I started a business. I didn't even know how to start a business. And I have created 2, and the third one, I sold the third one. But again, I started going to conference. I didn't understand. Today, we have so much, and actually, we have to be able to delegate. Look in in your student, create an assignment. I have actually put all of my idea into assignment and allow the student to blossom it. And when they blossom it and they're doing so well, I use them as leaders. So when you put them in charge, they blow your mind. So, and I think one of the very important point is we need to understand that education is shifting. We have left that era where you went into school and finish and start becoming a victim of, how do you say, a slave of a job, looking for somebody to give you whatever they want to give you and you take whatever. Bringing this entrepreneurship into the classroom allows students to actually realize that their work, they're being paid for their work, they're being hired, they're coming after them because of what they did. Their idea at conference, people want them to come work for them. People want them to come implement those. So basically, we are now, you have shifted this whole platform from a student who beg for a job to a business that come and say, I want that skill. I want you to come change us.
we're gonna complete our conversation. And before we complete the conversation, I wanted to ask you if you can give us maybe 2 or 3 suggestions for academics who maybe are doubting about whether or not they should start a entrepreneurial venture because they feel that maybe they will detach from their personality or their jobs of academics, and then maybe unsure about how their students, their class, or their academic side will benefit from then also following a passion or having a side hustle. How could, if you have any suggestions for those academics that are doubting?
So there will be few things that I will ask them to do, and then I will kind of elaborate on it. First, I want them to leverage their academic experience because professors are loaded with information. They are loaded with knowledge and skill because they have done that for so many years. So they are like a digital library right there. They could pull anything. So leverage that, build a collaboration network because it's take the passenger seat in the classroom. Don't be the driver. Let the student drive and have them drive all type of direction they can. That is very important. Be patient and persistent. Emphasize on human-centered research.
Christine, I wanted to thank you so much for giving us this time. If we want to follow you, if people wants to follow you or your work, what would be the best ways to follow you?
I am on LinkedIn. Well, I have a company called 𝐂𝐡𝐫𝐢𝐬𝐭, and that is where I'm actually posting all of the work that I'm doing. Right now, I'm developing 3 apps that are being used internationally, and I'm going to be putting things there. It's 𝐂𝐡𝐫𝐢𝐬𝐭. If you look for 𝐂𝐡𝐫𝐢𝐬gaming.fr, you're going to find me. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, but on Facebook it's just private. On LinkedIn it's more professional, and I have connected with a lot of people through LinkedIn too.